Types of swing. Types of swing of cricket ball. There are three types of swing of cricket ball. Swing of cricket ball. Number 1, conventional swing. Conventional swing. Number 2, reverse swing. Number 3, contrast swing. Contrast swing. Now we can compare between outswing and inswing, and they are actually conventional swing. There are two types of conventional swing, outswing and inswing. Outswing and inswing. So in the diagram for outswing, the shiny side is placed in this position. The shiny side or smooth surface is placed, and the ball is released with the seam at an angle with the initial line of flight. Seam is placed at an angle. The seam is placed at an angle pointing towards the first slip or pointing towards the slip. The seam is slightly placed at an angle to the initial line of flight, and that seam should be pointing towards the first slip. And this is the bowler end, and bowler is throwing the ball, and it will swing outwards with respect to the wicket or with respect to the batsman, and this ball will bend in air towards the first slip, and the seam is placed at an angle theta with the initial line of flight, and the shiny side is on the batsman side, and we can draw the wicket at the bowler end. This is the bowler end. Wickets are placed at the bowler end and wickets at the batsman end. And the seam of the ball is placed at an angle theta towards the slip or first slip of the first slip, and it is thrown in this direction. This is the actual trajectory, and it will bend or it will depart from the actual trajectory outwards with respect to the batsman end, and it will swing towards the first slip. Though it was thrown straight, but it will depart from its actual trajectory in air, and shiny side is placed towards the batsman, but the ball will swing away from the batsman. That means outswing occurs in the opposite end of the shiny side. Shiny side of the ball exists towards the batsman, but the ball swings away from the batsman. The ball swings to the end. The ball swings to the end opposite to the shiny side or shiny end of the ball. The ball exists on the towards the batsman end, but it swings away from the batsman. Outswing. This is outswing and conventional swing. For conventional inswing, shiny side exists in this position. That means towards the slippers, and seam is placed at an angle with the initial line of flight, and the seam is pointing towards the batsman. For outswing, seam was pointing away from the batsman, but the seam for inswing, seam is pointed towards the fine leg, or the seam is pointing towards the batsman. But the shiny side exists on the opposite end of the ball. We can denote the actual trajectory. The bowler throws the ball in this direction, and the ball swings inwards towards the batsman. Now we can compare between conventional outswing and reverse swing. For reverse swing, rough surface is placed towards the end of the batsman, and shiny surface exists on the other side of the ball. Means shiny surface exists on the end of outward end of the ball with respect to the wicket, and the seam is placed same as the conventional outswing. That means seam is placed at an angle theta, at an angle with the initial line of flight, pointing towards the first slip. The seam is placed at an angle pointing towards the first slip. Pointing towards first slip. And the ball is placed such that the seam angle is pointing towards the first slip. For reverse swing, here the seam is pointing towards seam position, same as the conventional outswing, but the ball will swing in the opposite direction with respect to the seam position. Seam is pointing towards the first slip and the ball swings towards the batsman. That means it in swing occurs though the seam is pointing towards the first slip. The ball swings towards the batsman. That means apparently in swing occurs, but the seam is pointing towards the first slip. The ball swings towards the batsman in the reverse direction with respect to the seam position. Seam is pointing towards the first slip or towards the slips, but the ball swings towards the batsman and it appears to swing into the wickets. That is what reverse swing. It was thrown with a seam position same as the conventional outswing, but but in swing occurs. In this case, the seam is placed at an angle theta pointing towards first slip. Shiny surface exists or is placed towards the outward end, and rough surface is placed towards the inward end. And the seam position is same as the conventional outswing, but here if the ball is thrown and if the ball is thrown after 40 overs, this is the original trajectory, and the ball, this is the original trajectory along which the ball is to be thrown, and the ball swings towards the batsman. That means in swing occurs in the reverse direction with respect to the seam position. Seam is pointing outwards, but the ball swings inwards. In swing occurs, which is known as reverse swing. Now we can explain what is contrast swing. We can compare between conventional outswing and contrast swing. For conventional outswing, seam is placed at an angle theta, but for contrast outswing, the seam is placed straight parallel to the wickets. Here the seam is placed straight without at any angle with the initial line of flight. Seam is placed straight up, not angled. Seam is placed not at any angle with respect to the initial line of flight, and we can denote the direction. This is the direction of ball flight. This is the ball flight direction. Rough side is placed towards the wickets, and shiny side or smooth side is placed towards the outward end or towards the first slip. And we can denote the wickets. The seam is placed straight up and with not any angle. Smooth side is placed towards the outward end, and rough side is placed towards the inward end. This is the actual trajectory along which the ball is to be thrown, and this is what ball flight direction of ball flight. In this case, ball is thrown. On the rough side, pressure will be less, but here the ball will swing outwards. That is contrast outswing. The ball swings outwards, but the seam is placed straight up for contrast outswing. But for conventional outswing, seam should be placed at an angle theta. with respect to the initial line of flight. So smooth surface is placed towards the outward end, and it outswing occurs. But for conventional outswing, shiny surface is placed on the other direction, and the ball swings in the opposite direction. Ball swings outwards on the opposite side of shiny side of the ball. But for contrast swing, ball swings in the same direction or in the same end of the shiny side of the ball.